Right, well, welcome everybody. You are welcome most to my talk on using spirituality to heal the world. I don't know what planet I was on when I suggested that title, and I'm not even sure I did suggest that title. I think Karen suggested that title, and then I had nervous hysteria earlier this week when I thought, how the hell am I going to tell people how to do this? Lucy and Natalia, can you come to the front? We're building community, as in just sitting on the front, not forcing you up and into the audience. So what I'm going to do first of all, when these ladies have sat themselves down, is I have one of my auric cleansing sprays here. So I'm going to let you pass it round and spray your aura. The reason I'm going to get you to do that is because when we're talking about spiritual matters, it's incredibly important to be protected. And we will do some group protection in a minute, but this is important for your own auric field. So just one spray and then just pass it on to the next person. You can spray it around your auric field. And so I know about these things because I am an aromatherapist. This is quite uncomfortable. Can you all hear me if I sit like that? No, you can't. I'm an aromatherapist and an astrologer, and I'll just take that out and then I can relax. I used to do voiceover, I'm sure you can tell. And I've used my voice in many things, which I won't go into. But anyway, I use essential oils and I love them. And the reason why I think they're so amazing for spiritual work is because they work spiritually, physically and emotionally on the body, and they just give aura cleansing immediately, but they also give protection, which is what we want. So we want to be in the best possible position when we're doing spiritual work, because we need to be protected, because you're opening yourselves up, and if you don't do that with ease, then it basically means you won't necessarily get the result you want, or you might over open yourself up and get the result you don't want and be taking someone else's energy home, which is quite scary and very, very possible. And this week I found out that CERN was switched back on. I don't really understand these things because I don't spend a lot of time in that part of consciousness, but I know that that has opened up a black hole, and I know the veil is very thin at the moment, and I've had an awful lot of people contact me and ask them if I can remove poltergeists and negative energies from their home, and my own son, who's very psychic, has been seeing more spirit than normal, so I know that kind of energy is around. So even more important to protect yourself and have awareness of the need for protection when you are kind of working with spirit, as it were. So I've told you I'm an aromatherapist. I've told you I'm an astrologer. I'll tell you a little bit about myself, because I talked to this lovely lady earlier because I was saying, oh, spirit just told me to wing this. And some of you already know that in the audience. And it would just come because there's so many things I know about. If I tell you a little bit about me, and then you can tell me what your expectations are, what you'd like to go away with from today, and I will do my best to deliver those for you. So I was a child that was always interested in fairy tales. You may identify with that. I loved fairy tales, really wanted to believe that magic was real, really wanted to be the witch living in the forest on her own, just working with herbs and just, dealing with the fae and the unseen. And that kind of carried on, and then I went through a period where I felt like I've always felt like I very much wasn't from this planet. I felt like I was from a completely different place altogether. And I remember having conversations with other little girls and them saying, yeah, I don't feel like I'm from here either. And then, as you grow up, you just forget those things because our culture has no place for them at the moment in the Western world. And we got started studying RE at school, like religious education, and I was deeply interested. But when I looked at all these different patriarchal religions, I just couldn't find one that fitted for me. But I did try Christianity for a bit. Some of you may be horrified to know. But in fact, can I just ask, is there any Christians in here? If you could just raise your hand so I don't offend you. Giles. And you, yes. So there's no offence meant by any of this. And Bella. Semi-Christian. Okay, that's cool. I just don't want to offend anybody with my kind of, past life bitterness and aggression. and limitations that I've noticed in this world and this lifetime. But yeah, I tried Christianity, but again, it didn't kind of hit the mark, it caused a lot of family aggro, because I come from a family where people haven't been involved in the church on my mother's side for hundreds of years. And in fact, I come from astrologers, I come from witches, and they just no one's telling us how to practice. Anyway, then when I was 20, for 21 actually, my first job, I met a male witch, and he was telling me about his practice, and I was just like, this feels so familiar. And it just kind of grew from there, really. And I'd love to tell you a story of how I suddenly found myself in Hampstead Heath connecting with the elements, but that's not what happened. I smoked way too much dope, and I just was very kind of, happy and kind of vibing and stuff like that, and just aware of I think I smoked so much dope actually because I was so sensitive that was the only way I could shut down my mind sometimes, because I could just see things, and it was just, I know that dope does bring the ability to see things, but you're more relaxed about it than if you're just seeing them without your permission. And then I kind of carried on I did do witchcraft, and I practiced it. I went to psychic school for a couple of years with some witches, and I learned more there. And they kept saying to me, you don't need anything, you need just yourself, and you can read people. And I was going, I can't get my head around this. Anyway, I passed, yay. And I carried on practicing, and people would try and have a religious discussion with me and say, you call yourself a witch, because I was always happy to do that. Tell me how that is. Do you see ghosts? And I was just like, do you know what? This is so not up for discussion. I refuse to discuss it with anyone. I was like, it's my spiritual practice. It is so private. It's not for your humor or piss taking. Then I had loads of health problems after my second child was born, like loads, so much pain for years. So I know all about fighting the NHS and knowing there's something wrong with you and being told that, there's nothing wrong with you and all of that kind of, drama. And then my father died suddenly, and it was like this huge awakening happened. And I find that often with death is the fact that it's a real invitation for growth. It doesn't feel like that when you're in the stages of grief. It feels shocking, especially a shocking death like that when it's unexpected. But it's kind of like, how do you maintain a relationship with someone who's no longer here? And yet you can see they're all around you, because literally the lights were flashing. I mean, my father did so many crazy things at his funeral and his wake. He, for instance, which I'll tell you this funny story, he hated my youngest sister's boyfriend with a passion, because he was 26 years older than my sister. He was like, dirty pervert. Anyway, this guy turned up to the funeral and was staying in the house. He stayed in my father's office. Anyway, in the middle of the night, I kid you not, the CD player, one of those old black things with many layers, popped open, smashed Joth in the nose and cut his nose open. I swear to God. And through the funeral, like when we were having the wake, he kept cutting the electricity off. We had so many power cuts. It was hysterical. Anyway, I knew that he was still around, because I've sensed all that. But that just started this journey. So I started studying essential oils. I became an aromatherapist, and then I studied astrology. I just started following all the things that when I was a child, as an adult, I'd had an interest in. I just went crazy for my passions. And that's what kind of created the Oily Witch. I was called Celtic Witch Mummer at one point. And then I just came up with the Oily Witch one day, and everyone went, yeah. I mean, if you told me at the age of 13 I'd be happy to be called Oily, I probably would have punched you. But that's where we are right now. That's who I am. I am the Oily Witch. And I kind of realized that what my passion is sharing my wisdom with people, all the things I've learnt. So I have a whole series of online courses which are pre-recorded for people to learn what I know, so that they can become independent, because there's so many things wrong with the way we live our life in the West. We completely have lost our connection to plants, even understanding which ones heal us unless you've studied them. All that kind of what was common knowledge, common sense, has been stripped away. And obviously we've got history to look back on, and when I teach witchcraft as well, and one of the modules is on history. And we're looking at female goddess religion when I talk about witchcraft, and we're talking about something that circa 35,000 years old, so not very recent. And it talks to go back to the time where women were worshipped, not all women, but there was a priestess that was worshipped in a tribe, because everyone has to have a role. And there'd be people that were just better at that kind of role. And the priestess would be supported by the male shaman. And so it was a dual thing. It was equal, but the woman was kind of, the one in front, because the woman had the U-inverse. She had the universe. She was able to give life. And we've got, in this country, around 2490 BC, we have the advent of the bronze warrior gods, which is, before that, the kind of culture of this country was Apolline. And that's what it's called. So female goddess religions. The bronze warrior people came over, and they had this kind of need for power and territory. And kind of that's where we've been for the last, 5,000 years, is been in that kind of need. And I think that the need for that stems from a jealousy that women can give birth and men can't. There's like a fear around that creative power that's been fueled. And I do also think it was and is an essential part of evolution, because my view is the fact that our souls choose to be incarnated. We are in a process of learning to equip the divine with as much information as possible. So we're like an experiment. So all of those things was an experiment of what it looked like when men ruled the world. And now we've reached a point in time where we've gone so far into kind of divorce, being the darkest we can be away from our spiritual selves, that this whole dawn of Aquarius is a reconnection to the spiritual selves. And that actually those principles around spirituality, whether you call them witchcraft or whatever you want to call them, they're all the same thing. It's all very common. So it doesn't matter the name you choose to call yourself. You'll find that, if someone else is spiritual, you'll have the same values in common. It's universal. Hello, elemental air. So yes, we've kind of got that process, and then Christianity is the one I talk about next within that, because Christianity is quite a misogynistic religion. It's not, if you read the Bible with kind of the right lens on. It's written in a language called Peshwa, which means it's kind of metaphoric. So the walk on water bridge that Jesus apparently walked on, there was a bridge called the walk on water bridge, but there's been so much misinterpretation that kind of like it's been used as a way to control people. And we know we've got the Knights Templar, the Crusades, etc. They realized if people could fight with their hearts because of their spirituality, they would fight a better war. They'd have something to carry on, a cause. And you yourselves know, those involved in the Freedom Network know that if you have a cause, you're so much more engaged than if you don't. And if it's a common cause, we humans, we come together. It kind of brings us together. And so Christianity, we've got this religion, and you've got this kind of abuse of this religion and its interpretation. My view is Mary Magdalena was Jesus's wife, and they were trying to roll out this religious practice together. I mean, the Bible was written 400 years after Jesus passed. If he did pass, I think he went off to India personally with Mary Magdalena. But, that's just kind of, there were two different calendars running at the same time. And again, it's down to interpretation. But the Dead Sea Scrolls are quite a good read. And I think that basically it's just women were taken out of the scene because we had so much power. And I think that there is this imbalance. Well, we're in the state of imbalance that we need to correct. And that's not at the expense of the men, because the men have been denied their female parts, because we are both male and female, all of us. It's just the women should spend more time living in kind of the female energy, and the men spend more time in the male energy. But we need each other. We completely need each other, and we balance each other. But anyway, this whole concept of a witch started around the 12th century. It came up because the church was losing its popularity. There was a lot of peasant revolts. They couldn't get the money anymore. They thought people were taking the mick, because people would basically go to church and then go into the fields afterwards and have the pagan festivals and do whatever they wanted. And they were like, these guys are getting out of control. All came down to filthy money, always does. How do we get more money in? Oh, I know. Let's start using health as a commodity. Let's create this kind of character of this woman that lives in the woods covered in warts, who's going to kill us if we use her medicine. She's got her own best interests at heart. They took all that knowledge into the church. They started denigrating all of the kind of wisdom that was around, making people feel stupid if they kind of wanted to rely on that, said that there needed to be this intermediary, well, they'd already said that, between them and the higher divine, which we know we don't need, we can go straight. And it really created a big problem. And I think it was around the 1400s where the Pope decreed it on point of death, heretical. If you were called a witch, you could be put to death. And all of the customs and all of that wisdom started to be hidden and go underground because obviously it was so dangerous. And people couldn't trust each other, and because they're calling each other out, etc. And we had that mildly through that time, but it really hit the skids around the time of James I, which is James VI of Scotland. And he decided, because he thought, I don't know why he was so scared of witches. I can't really... Oh, well, there we go, Freemason. The commonality in the history is the fact that it's about money, and it's about control, and it's about taking away people's power and ability to think for themselves. And, you know, we're talking about the physicians replacing midwives, you know, and people, you know, the crazy practices they had, which are really worrying. Some of the crazy things they did is because when the church took all that knowledge internally, the monks in the scriptariums, the ones that were copying out the information, they would decide a flower. They didn't like the look of a flower, so they would just change it because they didn't think that name particularly went with it. So the physicians were working with misinformation anyway. I mean, it's just so crazy. And people were told not to have baths because that would make them ill. You know, all these bits around hygiene, you've got the dark ages and things like that. It's just like so much about stopping you basically being able to survive and making it you feel, and they developed the concept of kind of sinning related to ill health. If you were unwell, you'd clearly been sinning, and the only people to absolve you were the church, and so it goes on, and all this fight, etc., and this denigration of kind of wise women. Which is still going on now with the pharmaceutical industry and the way they've behaved in this COVID like breakout. And I don't care if you carry on filming that, Simon. But during the lockdown, I was threatened by lawyers in America, little old me, because I'd written all these blogs about how essential oils could help you get well and which oils would help you during COVID. And that was so threatening to these lawyers. And also they were saying, but your country's more strict than ours. It's the British system. They don't want you to know this, and you're not allowed to make any claims at all unless you've put your medicine through these very kind of tough medical trials which test one plant active constituent at a time. And an essential oil has hundreds, so it just becomes completely unviable, plus the fact you can make your own essential oils. So why would they want you to make your own medicine? It's just like you can see it all kind of going crazy. It's really, really just scary. And that witch hunt kind of, you know, people kind of the fear driving people on to kind of, you know, point the finger at other people and do all of that damage by coming together in such an adverse way, driven by fear. And that's a problem, isn't it? Because let's think about, where does fear sit in our bodies? It's a lower vibrational energy. It lowers us, and it makes us more vulnerable because it lowers our energetic field, because we are made of energy. We're made of stars, literally. And if you kind of recognize that and understand that we are these electrical, energetic beings without limitation, actually you can start opening up to everything. But you have to do it with my aura spray, because that's the only way to stay safe. But no, you can find your own practices. But yeah, kind of, and I'm pleased that kind of witchcraft is kind of, witches are getting pardoned in, you know, what they did, etc. They're recognizing the damage this has done, and I'm pleased that on my course, I'm awakening people and getting people to step back into their power, because it's so important. And you were asking at the beginning of the day about sovereignty and what does it mean, and it means standing in our own power. And if we look at the astrology of everything that's been going on, and, you know, it's been a huge experience, has it not, astrologically? Well, if you don't know, you've probably felt it. Your life might have felt that it's imploded at various times. And it's this whole kind of return to self. that the planets are inviting and that we need to do, because the world we've been living in has got us to literally externalize all our energy, either by handing it over to someone else to make us better, or handing it over to religious people who know better than us, just giving it away. And we are in a culture where we are made to feel that we need to give, because that's going to make us feel better. That's going to give us some idea about who we are. And so we've forgotten how to receive. We don't know how to kind of receive with ease. So we ask ourselves, I'm doing all this stuff for the law of attraction. I'm telling the universe, I want this, I want that, and it's not happening. And it's because you don't know how to receive. You don't know how to receive even the smallest thing with grace, because that's not our culture. We feel embarrassed when people give us things. It's like, how do we do that and make it so comfortable? So if someone gives you a compliment, you don't go, oh, no, I just look awful today. Thanks. You go, thank you. That's really nice that you took the time to notice me. Thank you. And it's that receiving energy that kind of helps the universe to give us what we want, because as electrical beings, we're like a radio station. So we're giving out a frequency, and we want to make sure the frequency we emit is as positive for our well-being as it possibly can be. It has to be set at the tune we want to play. And ideally at 432, if you listen to Giles's talk earlier. But yeah, absolutely, sound healing. Why is that so effective on us? Why is music so powerful? Why do we remember words to songs, yet we can't remember things we read? It's really interesting that, isn't it? Most of us, who here struggles to remember the words of a song? Raise your hands if you struggle to. Okay. A few of you, bad luck. The rest of us, though, we're all fine. And interestingly, that's how a lot of information did get passed down, was in fairy tales and folk songs. Like, that's how they managed to secretly keep it alive. And it's just like witches' brooms, who's going to question a woman with a broom? They could hide things in them. So you've got all that going on, and it's just... I've given you a little bit of who I am and the world we're in, and the fact that I believe in life eternal, that we are eternal beings. We continue and we learn, and our purpose is to inform the divine. That's what we're here for. So if we look at it in that way, it feels so much better when really bad things happen to us and we weather them, because we can think, well, I'm just helping out the divine, actually. This is not my life imploding because I've done anything wrong. I'm just I'm just helping the whole system. And I do think there's something to be said for self-responsibility. So I was talking about the astrology and everything pointing towards self. Is this all making sense? Because I'm a little bit rambly. God, thanks, Giles. So the astrology we've just had all that energy in Aries, right? So there was 5 planets in Aries. We've had the kind of solar eclipse in Aries, and the sun is the planet of self. Leo, the heart, and also the solar plexus, which is the self chakra. And then we had the solar, we had the lunar eclipse. Anyway, the long and the short of it, just watch my videos. You'll find out all about it for what actually those particular things mean. But the main message is take responsibility for yourself first and foremost, because that is a lifetime's work. It is not something done easily. And I intuit that this lifetime, a lot of us are dealing with ancestral karma, because what happened in the Dark Ages when we were away from our spiritual selves is our family lines built up loads of negative karma, because people were still born with these gifts, but they had nowhere to put them. And anyone using any of the gifts, like intuition, clairvoyance, anything like that, it was the realms of the mad, wasn't it? It was dangerous to acknowledge those parts of self, so generally they were ignored and not validated. And so there's all this kind of karma that's built up in the family lines, which are really, really dark, and we are here to work on that karma and clear it. And we need to clear it so we can move into the light. So if you're experiencing a lot of past life remembrance in this life, it's because anything that comes up is for clearing. It's a clear message that this is what you need to focus on. And I feel like I'm living many lifetimes in one in this lifetime. Do you recognize that. It just feels really intense. And at times, back-breakingly intense, on my knees intense, broken glass intense, thinking, can I do this anymore? But since I've surrendered to the fact that it's all for the divine, I feel a lot happier about that. I feel like I have the resilience to deal with it. Spirit keeps skirting around something I really want to say, and then I go on to something else, and it goes away, and then it comes back. So there is something else. So self-responsibility is where it needs to start. I shut my eyes so I can hear easily. Learning a lifetime's work in basically clearing your ancestral karma, so the future generations, because you can clear back and clear forward, so the future generations can be more light and lighter. The veil is thin, so the ability to connect with spirit is really easy. So you will be noticing more synchronicity in numbers. Does anyone want to raise their hands? Yes, exactly. That's not by coincidence. People just suddenly turning up when you think of them, etc. I've remembered. So when we have a communication with someone else, right? If you imagine, as we're electrical beings, these kind of, imagine these like, they come out of us like waves, right? So we're radios. They're like doing this. And then we meet with another person and they come towards us and we meet and then we dance around each other when it's a good connection. I'm not just talking a sexual connection. I'm talking about when you have a real rapport with someone or they feel familiar. You do this dance, you share information, you share knowledge, you come away feeling really, really good. Then there's people that you reach out, you're going to meet them and you just slam up against a brick wall and you're like, whoa. And if you're an empath like me, you'll go, oh, can I go above it? Nope, nobody there. Can I go below it? Oh, nobody there. And then it's just a recognition of this person is like a tiny person has built a huge castle around them and there's nothing you can do. But initially you'll feel a bit possibly rejected because you'll be like, why is this person not meeting me halfway energetically? So it's kind of like that process is going on. And that's why some people make you feel amazing. And then you get some people, your energy goes out like that. And then they come towards you and it's like... and they drain you and you're like, what the hell was all that about? These energy vampires. And those are the people that are modernly known as narcissists, which is just a name for them. But what they are is people that are looking externally for energy because they don't recognize they need to take responsibility for themselves and find it from within. So they're literally externally validating the whole time. They want to be seen. They want your attention because they don't know how to give themselves attention, and they've had a difficult, experience. Nobody gets born a narcissist overnight. Well, they probably do if they come from a narcissist, but you see what I mean? It's in family kind of paths. Now, so you've got this kind of energy flowing around you, which is what you protect when you put an auric field around you of protection. And I recommend at the moment, I'm working a lot with gold. Gold is very important. So if you want to put like an auric protection around yourself, imagine a shield of gold. It is said previous civilizations used to spray the sky with gold because it was so protective and so balancing. So if they just changed the kind of what they're dropping on us to gold, it would be so much better. Exactly. Well, it actually balances the atmosphere, makes things more stable. So, a few ingredients. So the concept's right. It's just what they're doing, which is wrong, right? There's always two sides to everything. So now I move on to the things where around us in the world at the moment, there is a lot of things that are very distracting. There's a lot of dark stuff going on, and there has to be, because it's kind of like a process that history needs to go through, because things need to change. There's a lot of power in the hands of a very small amount of people. And when you have too much power, it's like anything. It's such an imbalance. You can't help but be corrupted, which is why I am a fan of electoral reform. I've got a politics degree, and that has made me just go, I don't want anything to do with politics in this country, because if you get into power through the system that's in place at the moment, you get so much power, it takes over your mind, and then you're not going to do it any good, and everyone's going to stop you doing any good anyway. The chief whips will. So it's just so twisted, but it's not in the interest of those in power to change the power, because then it will take away their power, because power is like a poison. It's like a perfume. It's so addictive. It's so heady. People don't want to let it go. So what happens is, because the higher echelons, and we alluded to them earlier on, the Masons, the kind of the mystery schools, the kind of, they know about magic, and they're using dark magic to basically have this control, because magic is very, very real. And they want to distract you as much as possible, because the more you're worrying about what's going on over there, the less you're going to be worrying about what's going on in here. And so when you give your energy to something else, we were talking about this earlier, when you're a healer and you want to work on someone, you always say, do I have your permission? Because you need their permission to work on them. But what happens when you're a healer and you're sending light to the world? You haven't asked anyone's permission to do that. So I'd just like you to think about that. So you're sending healing to people without their permission. Now, if you think about the fact that every single soul chose to be here and go through the experience they went through, it doesn't mean they deserve it, but they, on some level, chose to go through that process to learn things, and you're sending energy in. You're sending out this kind of coil of energy and vibration into somebody else's situation, creating a further mess, feeding the kind of fear and not the light. So it's a complete inverse from what you might think you're doing, whilst undermining yourself at the same time. So I think that's what Spirit really wanted me to get across today, because all I can see in my mind is just like all these coils and like these huge messes of kind of like mixed kind of wires, as it were, as people are trying to do good, but it's not happening because it's such a mess. That doesn't mean if something crosses your path, it is not your responsibility. It means that everything that crosses your path that you have the power to change, you change. You don't sit in your armchair bitching about it, going, oh, isn't that terrible? You do something about it. And if you get called to politics, because that's your thing, you get called and you take the kind of energy in that and you go and do something about it. That's what I'm talking about. And I think that they are making so many bad things kind of happen all at once, like promoting it through the media, because the media twists everything. We never really know what's going on. Is to distract you, to weaken you, to make you live in a fear base of feeling like everything's out of control, because then you're easier to control. That's what I think. Now, I grew up in Paraguay for some years of my life. Paraguay is a country you've probably never heard of, 4 times the size of the UK. Population when I lived there of 1.5 million. It was under a military dictatorship. You had to have a license if you wanted any facial hair. It was crazy. Nobody bothered about locking their cars or anything. Nothing, because it was so safe and so stable, because it was a dictatorship. And I was studying politics at the time, and I'd come back to UK with my stories of all the things that were going on over there, and my politics teachers were like, you're just full of shit, Claire. And I was like, no, really, honestly, these things are going on. So, and the way the media was portraying these things was so interesting, the kind of the difference of what actually was going on to what really, what they were saying was going on. So I know the media can't be trusted on any level whatsoever. I've lived that. And I also know that kind of, just everything is not how you think it is. And everything that you're told is wrong is not necessarily wrong. It's just practice discernment and listen to your heart about what's right and follow your destiny, really. I think that's what I want to say. Does that make sense? Yeah, got there in the end with my balls of wool and stuff like that. That's how I really see it, though. But so I want you to have consciousness when you're sending out light or you're getting upset about stuff. And you have to think, is this in my highest interest? Is this good for me to worry about something that I literally can do nothing about? Because it's just like a leak of energy. And it's like, I can't do anything about that, but I do know what I can do something about. This is where I live. This is my locality. I've noticed some stuff going on. I'm going to go and help with that. It's like, I'll build a community where I'm at. It's like, do what you can with those people that cross your path, and everything else, leave it alone. It's not your business. It's their business. And you're just warping their timeline from a misinterpretation of what they actually want or need. It comes, you think, from a good place, but does it really? So, guided meditation now, feeling a bit like that, yeah? Right, so if you make yourselves comfortable, put your feet on the ground. How long have we got, Karen, actually? Do we know? 10 minutes. I'm usually longer than that, so I'll be quick. Okay, feet on the ground, arms uncrossed, hands gently relaxed in front of you, face up or face down, whatever is comfortable, back straight. And just take some breaths for me, and I want you to breathe in through your nose, and initially I would like you to sigh out through your mouth. And as you sigh out, letting go of tensions, stresses, fears, just anything that is lower vibrational energy, releasing it out with a big sigh, like letting it go. I want to hear that. I want to hear it all going. Just letting it go over and over again. And as you breathe, being conscious of the breath that you're taking, being conscious of the oxygenation process that's going on in your body as the oxygen gently opens up space within you. And when you finish sighing things out, just go to closed nasal breathing to release the nitric oxide to help with that muscle relaxation process. And bringing that in, and as you breathe, imagining out of the soles of your feet, these beautiful, beautiful roots emanating. And we're still under the older moon, so these roots slide with ease into the earth beneath your feet, sliding deep down into that dark, vibrant place that Mother Nature is at this point in the year, connecting with the mycelium networks underground and the buzz of electricity, feeling that in your roots as they travel down past blood, bone and stone. And on they go at the speed of light until they reach your inception point, the inception of your family line in your human incarnation. And when they reach that point, they wrap themselves around that beginning, stabilizing you, anchoring you into earth, and feeling that energy from the earth coming up through those roots, through the soles of your feet, the tingling, warm energy of Gaia, as she holds space for you eternally with unconditional love, holding you safe, making you stable, grounding you. And you give back to her gratitude for being able to incarnate and have a human experience, for being able to enjoy the tremendous beauty that Earth brings us and shows us on a daily basis. So enjoy that fusion with gratitude and love in your heart. And now bring that energy higher. Let's take it up through the roots, up through the legs, up through the knees, the thighs, the pelvis, feeling that tingling, warm earth energy, feeling it into the sacral chakra, the relationship chakra, and feel that earth going around that central cauldron of energy and just grounding it, making those relationships with the outside world solid, well-rounded, calling in the energy of Taurus to make this happen in Taurus season, the balance of number 2, bringing that in, and then take it higher still to the solar plexus, the sun chakra, the one of personal self and ego, and bring in the earth to that sun, grounding that energy, making yourself feel safe, using earth energy to make yourself feel grounded, to make yourself feel nourished, to remind yourself that you are enough. And then we travel higher still to the heart. And when the earth, mother, goddess energy enters your heart, feeling that expansion, see those flowers, those trees as they burst into life and glory, feeling that love spreading through every part of your body, nourished from underneath by the blood energy of earth, out through your arms, up through your neck, into your head, down through your back, over all the lower chakras, down through the legs. Love, 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 expanding out an essential energy of Taurus into the auric field, expanding at least 6 feet from you. Love, love for yourself, love for life, love for each other and humanity with gratitude. And then let's take this earth higher to the throat, giving foundation, creating a solid connection between the heart and the throat, making sure the words we speak are colored with the love and the direction of the wisdom of our heart and our heart intuition. They tell us the truth of what we really, really want. And then we take it higher still to the third eye, bringing in that grounding energy. As we open the third eye, we can see the truth before us. We can see all that we need to do, all that we need to give the earth as we rejoice in her majesty in the Beltane energy. And then let's take it higher still to our crown. And as earth energy hits the crown, the brain is bathed in nourished, oxygenated blood, feeling that beautiful, beautiful process, that alchemy, as your brain gets a massage by Mother Earth, reminding you of the beauty of your humanity. Bringing that in. And then as we breathe, we shall open up the top of our crowns like a beautiful flower or a tree as we open each of those petals and out folds the stamen. And as the stamen unfolds like an antennae, we send rays of sound frequency and energy out through this gazebo, out into the sky, out into the heavens and the galaxies and the world beyond the worlds, until we find the highest point of ourselves, the rest of ourselves, and we connect with that. Making a connection, and then allowing the beautiful golden celestial starlight energy to come down through this antennae, filling us with light, golden starlight energy through each of the chakra fields, bringing our vibration to its highest possible best while we are in human incarnation, the divine part of ourselves, bringing that wisdom into the crown to raise the vibration and the quality of our thinking and thought processes, down to the third eye to really help us to understand and give us perspective on what we see and know, down to the throat, making sure that we understand the importance of the words we speak and they fall on the right ears with grace for the highest good of ourselves and all and to the harm of none. And then down to the heart, we send that light, celestial starlight, into that beautiful forest, the garden of the heart, to which it brings beautiful, beautiful stars and reminds us that we are so much more than just how we feel when we're here on earth, reminding us that we are eternal, that we can have the courage to face anything and everything that comes our way, for it is for our highest good. And on some level we chose it, but we have the courage to deal with it, the resilience. And then we bring that starlight down to our solar plexus, and we feel the sense of self expanding, the ego, the smallness of any fear around lack falling away, as we are reminded that we can give and receive with ease. And then down to the sacral chakra. And as that light curls and shines and whirls in that chakra center, we ask to release relationships which do not serve our highest good with ease and love, that they fall away with gratitude for our connection to them. And then down to the roots. We send that in, the starlight connection, and we send it straight down to Gaia, connecting and being a balance between so above and so below, heaven and earth, a true balance, a true connection, and just feeling that energy pulsing through you, those two energy points coalescing within you. That is exactly what you are, a divine being in a human body. Just know that, really feel that, and really be grateful for that. And feel that love and that gratitude spreading out to above and below. Bringing it in, feeling it, knowing it, trusting it. Under the balanced light of Taurus and the older. And now we must return. So we start with the starlight connection and we gently Release our connection from our higher selves, bring it in and down with gratitude to the rest of us, with a commitment to look at the night sky and see ourselves twinkling back. For we are the voices in our hearts and minds that always save us. It is us, just further distant parts of ourselves. We are so magical and so limitless. And now, as we bring that in, close that over, we rush over each of our chakras, placing a golden shroud as we gently close them down, wrapping the auric field in gold. And then we get to the roots, and we gently, with love and gratitude, disconnect from that earthly connection to Gaia, bringing up our roots with grace past blood, bone and stone, into the soles of our feet, to be called upon next time we wish to make an earth connection. Take 3 deep breaths. And then return. And just return by opening your eyes when you're ready. There we go. Is everyone back? Más o menos. Some people don't want to come back. I know it's so beautiful when we float out there, but it is so beautiful down on Earth as well. There's so many beautiful things to see and do and experience. So I'm Claire the Oily Witch. You can come and get a card. I do all kinds of fun stuff. So if you want any healing, astrology chart reading, aromatherapy, spiritual guidance, witchcraft training, I've tried to create a one-stop witch world. So I'm all there for you. So thank you. I am, Giles. I have it at the back. Okay, no problem. So thank you very much.